Hi there, thank you so much for clicking the thumbnail and being interested in my work. In this video I share with you my techniques and tips on how I achieved this pastel study of blonde hair and pale skin. So be sure to watch it right through till the end, because here and there I'll be slowing things down in real time so you can take a closer look. So let's dive in and take a look. Right, starting off this study then, putting the centre mark in. That's what I normally do when I do a freehand style outline. Just focus on imagining those angles, so it's imaginary angles from that centre point, and I'm also using the edges of the board. It's scaled up to 5 inch by 4 inch. What I tend to do is reduce the reference image small enough so I can see the whole image. What that does, it gives me more of an accurate feel to where these points are. Now when you're drawing hair, just see it as blocks of shapes and the flow of the movement. When you're doing the outline, it's just a case of flowing with it and just being really loose. And what I'm using here is a Faber-Castell needle razor, which is shaping or sculpturing the area. Now I'm finding the alignment on a vertical plane by using any pencil just to see and compare where each part aligns with each other. Just showing you here how I experiment before I start, just using certain pencils and combination of them, because I always mix them together just to see what will work. It just helps when you start putting the colours in, you've got a good idea then roughly what is needed. So I'm using the burnt sienna and blue to create greys, using yellow ochre and lemon yellow to get that sort of chroma, and trying out the 708 grey pencil, which is always a handy tone to use. Ghosting the image with the Faber-Castell kneadable razor there. On the underdrawing I've started off with the flesh tone, so these are the pencils I use for that, plus the yellow ochre. Starting off then with just using the white, more pressure where it's lighter, less where it's mid-tone. And all the underdrawings for is to reshape the outline and to create the sort of balance. Not too worried about the details, it's just a matter of getting a feel for it at this stage. I'm putting a cold red in there because it's more sort of colder skin tone, it's very pale. So I'm using the yellow ochre with it, and then just keep blending with that Carbothello white and getting some idea of some sort of form. But like I say, I'm not too fussed about getting the value right at this stage. It's all about just getting that shape and correcting the outline, making sure that everything's balancing right. Just trying a bit of warm red as well and blue, because you can make the actual red cooler by adding blue to it. It's more of a purpley red, you see, so adding that little bit of ultramarine does the trick. But just playing at this stage, just working it out. It's a good idea really, just to play and enjoy the freedom of this underdrawing, because you can really get loose and feel the flow, and that's what it's all about. And then hopefully that will continue right through to the finished details, keeping that looseness and that feeling of energy. Doing exactly the same thing with the skin tone there in the face, just using the white first, putting that down lighter where pressing on more where it's lighter, less where it's mid-tone, and just getting a general feel and just get the flow of things, and just having a play with all these different colours, just to get that sort of an idea of where things are. So you're just correcting your outline. Now to help to get the overall balance, I'm using the white again, but just doing the highlights to start with, so working on the whole and really opening up the vision and checking everything again, just making sure that the outline was correct and moving things around if it's needed to be moved. Best not to name it as hair, just see it as shades, shapes and flow and rhythm. Just try and get the rhythm of the hair and the flow of it, and everything just falls into place then. If you're enjoying this video, why not subscribe? It's absolutely free, and then you're sure not to miss any of my future videos. Just adding some pigment over that white now, just lemon yellow and the yellow ochre there, just to get some richness down. These are the actual colours I'll be using for the hair, basically for the underdrawing anyway. And just getting a sort of feel for where things go, and just enjoy the sort of freedom, like I say, of just moving things around and having a play and seeing what works, you know, experimenting. Just using the olive green, burnt sienna and burnt umber just to rough in the background there. Decided to put this in rather than just use the grey board. Just reason is it's just a little bit of a bonus for you as well, to show you how I do foliage if you ever do landscapes, because it's the same principle as what I'm going to use. Right, so these are the background colours I'm using to put the rich colours in. So I decided to do the background first before I start putting the hair in. So again, this is the same combination I do when I do trees, grass. So it's a good practice really, and it's good to share this again. Just using the brown, burnt sienna and olive green, and then the ultramarine blue and a bit of lemon yellow here and there, and then just to tint it, just using that white. And it's a case really of just letting go when you're doing things like this. Don't see it as leaves and what have you. See it as just shapes, colours and feeling, and then just let these movements just happen and sort of let go of control, and don't try and name anything because it'll just flow from you then. This study will be on my Patreon page at some stage, so if you'd like to see this as a real-time audio, real-time video, please check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Now, before I started the hair, I needed to get some of that skin tone more or less the right shade and value and chroma, so I just put some rich colours in the ear to start with, just to get a feel for what value is needed on the hair. Now for the really bright highlights, I'm using the Rembrandt white here. That will give it that sort of vibrancy I want underneath the glaze. You see, I need to put that really freshness underneath the colours I'm going to put on the top. Same with here, I'm putting that little bit of yellow ochre here now with a Rembrandt stick, just to add that sort of pigment in there first, that richness, and then soften it out by using the Carbothello white. It's a great tool that is to soften things. It's quite chalky pigment, and it mixes in with the Rembrandt vibrancy as well. Now I'm using the burnt sienna to go over the white here, then use green to desaturate it. It creates a certain grey. Now some areas need a cooler grey, so then what I do for that is I use the burnt sienna and then blue, and then that will create a cooler sort of shadow. So you have to work out which grey, is it a little bit warmer or is it a little bit cooler, and that's when you add the blue or the green. Now for the wisps of the hair, I'm using the Faber-Castell white, and so I've been free flowing with it and just go with the movement and the rhythm of the hair, but I'll glaze over this with certain colours later on just to break up those lines. But initially you've just got to map it all out, so it's quite liney at the moment. It's quite sort of don't look natural, but later on in the video I'll show you how I change that up. But here I'm creating that shadow again by using burnt sienna and the blue to create greys. At this point I decided to get a little bit more focus on the actual skin tone, so I'm putting a lot of white down now first, and then what I'll do is I'll glaze over the top. Now this skin tone is quite fresh, so I'm using the Caran d'Ache cold red there and the Chinese white. Now the skin tone isn't smooth, so you have to create that little bit of texture by doing small circles and little dashes here and there, but then when you glaze over the top it becomes quite subtle. So I'm using the yellow ochre now from that range, Caran d'Ache, so because it's richer and more sort of vibrant, to create that more of a glow. Now I'm just using that little bit of lemon yellow as well there, mixing that in with it. But the Carbothello white, that's great for actually blending. So I'm using the freshness of the Caran d'Ache. Also I'm using the Faber-Castell white here as well, which is another fresh white. So if you've got, you know, one or the other in your kit, really good to use, and then just keep glazing over the top until it actually becomes the right sort of temperature and vibrancy. Now I'm using the green here to desaturate the pink, so that'll create more of a sort of natural skin tone, because when you first put that pink on, it's too vibrant and brash, so you need to add that little bit of green just to soften it and desaturate it. And then just going round in certain areas, just creating that texture. And it's a case of going backwards and forwards with these colours until it starts to shape up. Using a grey to break up the lines as well, which is the 708. It's quite handy to use because you can always glaze over that grey, and just really be free flowing with it, and just don't have to be exactly the same as what you see on the reference image, but you just need to be close enough. But once you've got all these lines in, then we can start putting that sort of subtlety over the top. If you're enjoying this video, why not give it a like and share it with your friends? It would mean so much to me, as this would help the channel to grow. Right, so I've mapped out all the wisps of hair now, so it looks a little bit flat and it's a little bit coarse in places, so I'm softening it up here with a 704 pencil from the Carbothello range. It's quite a nice grey, this is, it's quite soft. And it worked to treat, really, just to soften those edges, so I used that for that, and then glazed over now and again with different colours over the top of that grey, just to subtle it up. Now in between the hair there's the background there, so I'm putting the burnt sienna down and using a bit of grey and also a bit of green here and there. So it's a case of going round now and looking at the whole thing and trying to give it that sort of 3D look. So you've got to be aware of the values, so compare one value with the other, making sure that it's very similar, you know, and then see how bright something is. It's not always pure white, there's always a subtlety to it, so you have to really, you know, really look at it and feel what the temperature is, how it glows. If you need it to glow, just add that little bit of lemon yellow. If you need it to be desaturated, just put the opposite colour in there, which does the trick. Now, opposite meaning complementary. Now, if you're interested in wanting to know about the colour wheel and how I mix colours, especially for skin tone, I have actually got here for you a free guide on how to mix shadows for skin tones and anything else you do. Now I've developed this from my technique, so to get your free copy of this video, be sure to check out the link in the description below. Now the final details, I tend to look in the mirror a lot and also take a photograph with my mobile phone, see what that looks like. If you look at it from a different sort of perspective, you find certain things that need altering. It's just seeing it afresh. So looking at it as a reflection in a mirror, you see the flip image of it, so things stand out. You think, oh, I need to get that sorted. Things to look for in the final touches is to get the values correct, the temperature, the edges, so some edges are softer, some are sharper. Now this is a great tool for when you're doing the edges, is a colour shaper. You just move pigment around and you can sharpen areas up, and then you can blur certain areas as well. Especially for detail work, it's ideal to have in your kit. Be careful how you use the colour shaper though. Just dab it and just move the pigment around very slowly. If you dig in too hard, it'll lift all the pigment off, so really be gentle with it. Now this skin tone is quite sort of fresh and is like a purple colour to it, so I'm using the cold red with a blue to create subtle purples, so that's creating that freshness. Thank you so much for watching the video right till the end. Really interesting study this. Not only is it for the blonde hair, but also for light skin tone and also background colour as well, which is really handy to know how to combine the pencils for that. If you enjoyed the videos, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if there's any pointers or if there's anything you didn't quite understand what I mentioned in the video, please leave a message in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But in the meantime, if you want to watch any more of my work, please check out this link here. Take care. Bye.